Hey up and welcome back to the channel. We are back here with something we did last year, which is the multiplayer save and the season reviews. We're at the end of the first season. Yes, it's January. Between work and people's sleep schedules and everything else, it's really hard for us to get on as often as we like. But we've made it through the first season, and also there's like one wrestling pay-per-view. Usually we stay up all night watching the wrestling and playing Football Manager, but there hasn't been as many because Christmas. But yeah, so we're going to go through everything. We go through the transfers, the league, the cups, Europe, head-to-head. We do a squad report and we have a quick look at the other squads for all three of the teams. I am manager of Tottenham Hotspur, Matt is manager of Aston Villa, and Reece is manager of Man United. Let's get into this. Okay, so in the summer, we made two signings, and that was Hamzid Kargbo, for those of you that have been around the channel for a while, or through the streams, or even if you've watched Sully Hall, which would have come out on Monday. I feel like this is probably going to go out on Friday. It might come out Wednesday. It's probably going to come out Wednesday. So yeah, if you haven't watched Sully Hall Save, go and watch it. There'll be an episode coming on Friday as well. But Hamzid Kargbo is a legend amongst this channel. Last year, we had what is an incredibly average player do absolute craziness. No, to be fair, it wasn't that crazy. It was more crazy because of his ability and the fact that I think he ended up with like 10 career Premier League goals. But yeah, we bought Hamzid Kargbo in from QPI. He cost us 25 grand. It's probably about 25 grand too much, but we bought him in. He's a legend. He's magic. He wears a magic hat. We also bought in Anel Akmahodzic, or Anel. We bought him for 12.5, rising to 13.5.25. As everyone knows, Spurs have no centre backs. It's not a secret, and that caused us a problem in that, we've only two centre backs. We needed a centre back. We also needed someone who's homegrown, because homegrown's a big issue for Spurs. We don't have a lot of players that came through in England. Akmahodzic came through at Nottingham Forest, so he ticked that box. Happy to come in as squad player. He came in. When we got to January, we had agreed a lot of transfers. I should also say we had the money we spent, that money on Akmahodzic, we had about 10 million by the end of January, and we did actually agree to bring in someone. We agreed to bring in Thales Magno, but multiplayer was still kind of in its infancy when we started this, and so there was issues and we got to deadline day and there was 10 hours left. I agreed the contract, we were waiting on the work permit, and we all hit continue and it just skipped 4 to 10 hours and transfer deadline day was over, so I didn't get to bring in that signing. But in January, we had already agreed a load of players. I'd kind of made up my mind about a lot of the players, told a lot of them they could leave. A few of them were unhappy and wanted to leave anyway. And so January was pretty crazy for us. So we'll start with, we bought Carl Walker-Peters back to the club for 20 million, rising to 31. You'll notice there's lots of kind of rising to, and they're all performance-based. And if we end up paying 30 million for Carl Walker, then he's been fantastic. But he came in, homegrown at club. At the time, we were in the European places, and I was very concerned about our lack of homegrown at club quota. Can play both fullbacks. At the time, we were playing an inverted right back, and that was his favoured role, and he seemed like a no-brainer. We then brought in Adam Hlozic. We had a lot of success with him last season. He comes in for 12 million, rising to 21. We had a lot of success playing him as a left winger, or a left inside inverted winger. Last year, we were dying for goals, and so 12 million up front, I was like, that is perfect. We then brought in Melvin Bard for 4.5. 23-year-old left back, happy to be a squad player. He's never going to displace Adogi, but he's good enough that he can come in and do the job. We then brought in Thales Magno from New York City FC for 7 million, runs to 8.5. I've signed him for years. He's been hit or miss. I've had him be a key player in a title-winning side. Last year, he had a load of loans in the Championship and never really materialised. And then we brought in Evan Nilsson. So the idea was I brought in Adam Hlozic. He was going to be our main striker. And if you look at the transfers out in a second, you'll see that Richarlison left. The problem is that Hlozic arrived injured and he was out for a while. So I knew I needed another striker. So we paid 35 million up front for Evan Nilsson. The board had given me like 100 million just before the window. And I was like, all right, I'll take that. And Evan Nilsson came in, 35 million. We'll get onto that. We then brought in Tosin Adarabioyo. I wanted another homegrown centre-back, and for 15 million, I was like, can't really go wrong. It went wrong. He made 2 substitute appearances for the season because we were pretty lucky with Van der Ven and Romero being fit all season and not really suffering too many suspensions. But he made 2 sub appearances. One of them came in the FA Cup final, where from a goal kick he gave it to, I'm pretty sure it was Julian Alvarez for a goal, and currently I'm trying to sell him. We brought in Luca Oyen for 6 million from Genk. Comes in, he's a young, he reminds me of a, it's going to sound stupid, but he's very reminiscent of Jeremy Doku. All pace, loads of trickery, really good. He's not going to win a shoulder to shoulder barge, but all pace. We also brought in Marco de Cesare from Argentinos Juniors for 5 million. He's still on loan at Argentinos. He spent the rest of the year there. As with Adebayo and Ahmedhodzic didn't feel like we needed him. We also still had Ashley Phillips around the club. As you can see, the first month, Evanilson didn't really set the world on fire. He actually looked like Richarlison. And so I panic bought Tammy Abraham, who was still recovering from his injury. We'll get onto him. And then the final transfer we made on deadline day was Florentino Luis for 35 million, rising to 42. That was down to... we'll get onto that. I'm just going to move the camera to here. So on the players out, so we agreed a 1.3 million fee for a loan for Eric Dyer to Newcastle. There was also a 7.5 million optional fee or mandatory fee if they won the league. Spoiler alert, they didn't. And we sold Hugo Lloris to Krasnodar for 275 grand, which upset Heung-min Son, even though Lloris wanted to go. In January, we sold Højbjerg to Al Ittihad for 21.5 million. Ryan Sessegnon went to Borussia Dortmund for 15 million. I conned Borussia Dortmund because I put him up for transfer. His contract was up at the end of the year. They bid on him in December. So it's 7.5 million up front, 75 million in instalments. If they'd waited 2 weeks, they could have signed him on a pre-contract. We signed Brian Gill for West Ham. We sold Brian Gill to West Ham for 20 million. I'd given him a couple of opportunities when he got back from injury. Just didn't see a place for him in the squad. Richarlison we sold for 26 million to Al Nassr. He was so hit and miss, it was unbelievable, and it was putting pressure on us because it'd fluff a chance and we'd end up conceding. We sold Ben Davis to Brighton for 12.5 million. We sold Emerson Royal to Al Ittihad for 16.5. Both of them became unhappy because they weren't getting game time because of the form of other players. And then we sold a youngster to Sunderland. And then on deadline day, Newcastle came in and bid on Oliver Skipp, in which I was told he would be... he would kick off if we didn't agree to it. So reluctantly, we sold one of our only homegrown players, club players, to Newcastle for 39.5 million, rising to 54. That is all based on instalments and stuff like that, so it's kind of guaranteed. We also sold Noel John to West Brom for 1.1 million. But that was our transfer business, and some of it was good, some of it wasn't so. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. But I felt like we did all right. So now we're just going to transition to the next club. Okay, so we've now transitioned over to Man United. So Reece made some... Well, in the summer, he made one signing, and that was Victor Osimhen for 86 million. He contacted the board and said, I really think we should go and get this player. And the board agreed with him. And thus, willingly paid 86 million. It's frustrating because he manages to do this a lot. He manages to get the Man United board to buy players all the time. Going into January, he was selling a few players and... he was selling a few players and the board gave him some more money. So because of AFCON, we got hit by AFCON. Some of us harder than others. He signed Matthias Tell from Bayern for 48 million to cover Osimhen for a month. Most people would have got a loan, but Tell's been really good for him. He also found a transfer listed Brahim Diaz for 24 million, who he signed, and then Brahim Diaz went off to African Cup of Nations. And then on deadline day, he made 2 loan deals. They were both insanity. He realised he had left himself short at centre back, so he signed a loan deal for 3.4 million for Presnel Kimpembe, and a loan deal for 10.25 for Antonio Silva, exploiting the game. And I'm not saying that as I'm unhappy with him. Like, it was there to be, exploited. But he basically put massive optional fees at the end of it. He was never going to trigger. On the outs, he sent Donny van der Beek to Juventus for 1.1 million, and then a couple of youngsters. January, he sold Lindelof to Newcastle for 4.9, rising to 6.75, and he sold Harry Maguire for almost 20 million. So wasn't much business, which is really shocking for Reece, because Reece usually does a lot of business. But Man U had already done quite a lot of it anyway. So, yeah, it wasn't as busy as he probably usually would have. But that was Man United's business done. Okay, so now we come to Matt's business. So in the summer, he made one signing, and that was signing David De Gea on a free transfer. He needed a backup, and David De Gea is a top quality backup. You know, as a backup, you can get a lot worse. In January, he then went and signed Nathan Ngumu, who he loaned back to Mönchengladbach without realising he'd agreed to do that, because that is Matt. And for those of you that haven't been around the channel or haven't watched last year's versions of this, I suggest going back, because some of what you see from Matt, you will understand why he can be one of the most frustrating people to play with. But yeah, he signed Ngumu and loaned him back. He agreed a loan deal worth 4.7 million for Smith Rowe. I don't know if he had a... Is he still... I haven't... Oh, there you go. He had a 35 million optional fee. I don't know whether he has actually triggered that. He then signed Maxence Lacroix from Wolfsburg for 67 million, rising to 70. We were saying to him at the time, like, don't do it. You can get players just as good as him for half that. You're blowing an entire budget on Maxence Lacroix. But you can only advise your friends. He also bought in Kato Nakamura from Stade de Reims for 22 million, rising to 24. Signed Ederson from Atalanta for 39 million. And Luis Suarez from Gremio for 2.5 million. That was, I told him to sign Suarez, right? Because Suarez's stats were insane. As a deep line forward, like, yes, he can't move, but them stats, he was struggling for goals. I was like, you need to go and sign someone like that. Like, it's not going to cost you much. And then what he did is something that he did last year, and that is that he allowed his assistant to do the Conference League's registration for him, and both Ederson and Suarez were left out. And both left out, I'm pretty sure Suarez was left out of his Premier League registration, and they both got unhappy very quickly. On the outs, he did... There you go, so he's got the... There was no real... He managed to get 11 rising to 13 million for Tyrone Mings, and then got 32 rising to 38 from Arsenal for Ezri Konsa. He had a good start to the season. And then Bayern came in with a 48 million rising to 60 for Douglas Luiz, thus the signing of Lacroix to replace the fact he'd lost 2 centre-backs. I told him it was a signing he didn't need to make. Is Longley got an optional fee? No. But yeah, it was a crazy one for him. A lot of the stuff he does, I don't understand. But they are your transfers for the first season. Okay, so you join me, and you're going to be looking at the league table right now. So the teams that went down were Burnley, Luton, and Sheffield United. Were they the 3 that came up? I think they were. Yeah, the 3 that came up went straight back down. I signed Sheffield United's best centre back. It went to the final day. The league is, what's it in? Luton could have survived, but they drew Man United as the last game of the season. So as you can see, like, kind of a lot of teams where you expect them. Newcastle had a very disappointing season, sacked Eddie Howe midway through, or I think it might have been December time, they sacked Eddie Howe and replaced him with Antonio Conte, and then spent a lot of money. I feel like Newcastle are a team that you're going to want to see the amount of money they spent. So, and we don't like Newcastle. So I agreed fees for Villagra, Barco, and Leonardo all in January. I agreed the transfers, I gave the contracts, and all three of them turned me down for Newcastle because they were still in the Champions League at that point. Even though at the time they were like 15th in the table, they all turned me down and joined Newcastle. It hurt. It hurt a lot. I was very angry. But yeah, continue to spend. One of the things I will say about them is they have brought in, there's a lot of youngsters in there. Brighton managed to get Europa League football. So Villa got the Conference League. I will tell you now, the Champions League final was Man United, Man City. The Conference League final was Villa, Brighton. So the Champions League spot managed to open up 5th place as a Champions League spot. Chelsea had a mad run. It was really annoying. At the end of the season, they weren't losing games. It was so frustrating. So then when we dropped points, it hurt. But the Champions League final meant that we got a Champions League place. Arsenal, West Ham and Brighton all going to the Europa League. There's a minor spoiler there. And Villa get Conference League because of all the spots available. So for all of us, it was relatively successful. I would have liked to have finished top 4. My target was just top half finish. But I would have liked to have finished top 4. We had a lot of injuries. It was reminiscent of real life. We lost. Son made 22 appearances in the season because he spent so much time injured. But for me as a Spurs fan, we finished above Arsenal, we finished above West Ham, and as a personal, I finished above Villa. That was good for me. You know, none of us were particularly close to the title challenge. Liverpool and Man City, that was settled on the final day in a game between them that finished 0-0. Matt really fell off. Where's the past position? So if we just look at Aston Villa, for the start of the season, look, match 6, he's up here, and then it was just a descent. He started so well, and he'll tell you, and he's openly said this, the big thing for him is every time he plays Man United and he loses, I think he was unbeaten at that point, and he played Man United, and then his form just dropped off a cliff. But if we have a look we go back to this, Erling Haaland finished with 32 goals in 33 games, some of them as a sub. He just did what he did. Osimhen with 21, Calvert-Lewin with 18, assists, Odegaard, Szoboszlai and Madueke. By January, Matty Cash was top of this, and he just didn't get an assist for the rest of the season. Clean sheets, Ederson with 19, Sanchez, who got signing of the season with 16, and Alisson. Pedro Porro was a naughty boy and got a lot of bookings. But if we go to the FA Cup, we'll start with the Carabao Cup because that's the first one. So the Carabao Cup, holders of Liverpool. They beat Arsenal on penalties in the final. Semi-finals was Leeds, Arsenal, Liverpool, Hull. Quarter-finals, Matt lost to Leeds on penalties. That was when he started really panicking. And then me and Reece both went out third round. I went out on penalties to West Ham, and Reece went out to Everton. We weren't a great Carabao Cup, but me and Reece weren't putting any kind of emphasis on it. In the FA Cup, I lost to Man City in the final. I should be able to actually show you the third goal. Who was it? It was Rafinha's goal. Okay, so this is the third goal. We're 2-1 down in the dying minutes. And that is what we conceded. That is what Adebayo brought to the club. That. we weren't good. You can see by the stats, we weren't good. It was Man City are terrifying. Semi-finals, Reece went out to Man City, and we got Plymouth in the semis, which is, you're going to go, oh, well, that's shitty, and we got Preston there. Reece beat Arsenal, right? So you're going to go, oh, well, you've had an easy time. I had Chelsea in the 5th round, Is this when Matt went out? No. Chelsea in the 5th round. In the 4th round, Reece got Birmingham. I played Liverpool. Where is Villa? Did he go out before this? Oh, yeah, he did. And then in the 3rd round, he lost to Man United. Yeah. So I didn't win the trophy. It was very disheartening. It's kind of the thing I'm known for in these series is I do love a domestic cup. I think last year, for the first 3 years, I won a trophy every year. I rotated between the FA Cup and the League Cup. So it was shit, but it's one of them. When you get Man City and playing against them was scary. It was just, they had the ability to just rip you apart. But so now let's go to the Conference League. And as you can see, the final of the Conference League was a 2-0 win to Brighton, who beat Aston Villa, and it was deserved. It wasn't. Villa just didn't get going. And if we have a look at his journey throughout, so he had a good win over 2 legs against Frankfurt. That was probably one of the better rounds he had. He scraped past Boulder Glimt in the quarters, and I mean he scraped past. Round of 16, he scraped through against Rennes. In the group stage, where is he? He had so his group was Cucuricchi, Lugano, and Fiorentina, and he'd only guaranteed qualification on the final group game against Fiorentina. They played out like a 1-1 draw. Otherwise, I lost 3 of them. Lugano probably, I think Lugano would have had the option to leapfrog them, but it just, yeah, he clawed and bit his way to the final of that, and then yeah, it wasn't really a competition. It was never really in doubt all the way through. If we go to the Europa League, that was between Roma and Sporting, and Roma come away 2-0. I assume Mourinho is still there. Yeah, of course he is. Had no real interest in the Europa League because none of us were in it. And in the Champions League, you will see that Reece, and he'll be the first one to admit this, absolutely stole this victory. Man City were just comfortable the whole way through, and he managed to get 3 ridiculous goals out of it and turn it round. And fair play to him. That is a big trophy to win in your first season. He is the only person to win a trophy as it stands now. And yeah, fantastic result for him. Gets Champions League football. Johnny Evans got a Champions League medal. And next season, it's going to be a tough job to, oh my God, it hasn't been won consecutively since Real Madrid did it. But yeah, so he got Man United into, he won and it actually stopped Man City winning the quad as well. I think that meant more to him than actually winning it. But yeah, let's just have a look at the schedule. So as you can see from mine, there's too much yellow. Losing a game is okay. Well, it's not, but there's not that much red in there. It's all of the yellow, and yeah. So we have a look at the key games. We actually beat Liverpool 2-0 on opening day, and we beat Man City 4-2, and the first month was good. And then we played West Ham, and it was shit. 2 penalties, both of them were controversial. Then we lose to them in the cup. We then drew 1-1 with Man United with Reece at home. I don't remember it being a particularly good game. We then played Aston Villa, and one thing you'll learn is we fucking love a dying second goal against Villa. So he went 1-0 up through Ezri Konsa. Maddison equalised, then got a goal, put us 2-1 up in the 52nd minute, and John Duran got a goal in the 82nd. And then cometh the hour, cometh the man, Giovanni Lo Celso scored an absolute screamer in the 90+4. It was literally the last kick of the game to give us the win. We then drew 0-0. By the way, both our games with Arsenal were awful. Like, no highlights kind of games. We then played Reece on the 1st of January, and I'm just going to direct you over here to the squad. So Vicario starting in goal, Carl Walker-Peters, who had just signed, Romero, Van der Ven, Adogi. Skip was having to play because Basuma was on international duty. Lo Celso had to play because Bentancur had got injured and Pape Maïsar was on AFCON. James Maddison, Kulusevski, Thales Magdo and Heung-min Son. Heung-min Son had to play as a striker because of the fact that Hlozic had turned up injured, Richarlison had left, and we hadn't signed Evan Nilsson. And then you look at the players that this was literally all I had to bring on. We brought on Ukma Hodzic, Donnelly, Santiago, Brennan Johnson, and Velez. We did not. It probably wasn't a 4-0 game, but it was just one of them games. We then lost 2-0 to Liverpool in the league. We should never have lost that game. It was just another one of them where we couldn't watch it. Beat Chelsea 2-0 in the league. Had a 1-1 draw with Arsenal. They were dreadful games. Managed to beat West Ham on the return leg. And the home game against Villa, we tore Villa apart. 3-0 was a nice result to him. If we have a look at Matt's schedule, he started really well, got a win against Arsenal, win against Newcastle in the Cup, drew with Forest, beat Liverpool, beat Chelsea, drew with Man City. At this point, he's unbeaten. And then Man U turn up and put 3 past him. Then I put 3 past him, and then he lost to Newcastle. Comes back, good wins there and there. Throws it away against Bournemouth. Loses to West Ham. Goes out. Gets, a couple of wins and a draw. A 4-0 win against Wolves is a big result. And he's starting to turn it around again. Loses to Man U. And then draws with Burnley. Loses to City. Loses to Chelsea. Comes back, beats Wolves again. Loses to Palace. Gets a few wins on the board, loses to Newcastle, loses to me, loses to Everton, draws, manages to get a 0-0 with Reece in the Premier League. Rashford had a goal disallowed that Reece found controversial, but I googled FA rules, and it turned out to be right. He then, end of the season, other than Burnley, who at this point were bottom and relegated, he couldn't buy a win. It's something that happens with Matt a lot. He starts really well, and then by the time you get into Christmas, he just starts falling away, and it's something he's got to work on. What he ends up doing is then trying to make loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of changes, and it just bites him on the arse. Finally, let's have a look at Man United. He started with a 4-3 loss to Arsenal. It was a game that he was in, but they never really felt like he was in it. So he had a pretty lackluster start, losing his first Champions League game to Ferencváros, the 1-1 draw. Beat City 1-0, kind of plodded along. Had this absolute shocker against Brighton. Got slapped by Liverpool. Beat by City. Then beat me and Matt on the bounce. Then that was just ridiculous. He was like, they've had 2 shots on goal. And I'm like, it's prime Conte. He then came back and slapped Liverpool, beat Arsenal, lost to West Ham, lost to Chelsea. Kind of lost in the semi-final to City, and then beat City in the Champions League. So for all of us, more for me and Reece, it was a case of I drew too many games, he lost too many games. And I feel like if you look at the Premier League, so I lost 1 game less than him, but four draws really cost us there. We could have turned some of them losses, and to be fair, the Luton game was a bullshit game. They had 1 shot all game. But if we could turn some of these draws to wins, we shoot up the table, and it's just that. Finally, if we just have a quick squad report, Appearances, Vicario and Van der Ven, Maddison. I'm surprised Maddison had that many because he did suffer a relatively nasty injury that kept him out for a little while. But yeah, Hyun-Min Son making 23 appearances in a season. Is there anyone here that shouldn't be down here? I'll quickly show you, if we have a look at my medical centre season summary. So that doesn't count, but like Hlozic missed 5 months, Son missed 3, Evan Nilsson missed 3, Maddison 6 weeks, Romero 5, Adogi 6. Like, there's just a lot of injuries. But for goals, and this tells you all you need to know, Kulusevski was our top goal scorer with 15. That tells you all you need to know. Maddison's got on 9, Son on 7, Evan Nilsson. 6 from 15 isn't appalling, but I'd like more. But yeah, Kulusevski getting 15 goals is our top goal scorer. It's something we're looking at in the summer. Tammy Abraham got 5. Assist-wise, Maddison with 10, Porro, Adogi with 7. We just didn't score enough, and that was a big, big problem for us. We lacked goals. We go to Man United and look at players, appearances. Varane played 47, Fernandes 46, Marcus Rashford 44. Big numbers there. And then, when you've got a guy that can score 32 goals and then a midfielder scoring 17 and a winger with 15, you're pretty lucky. You're scoring a lot of goals. Assist wise, 14 for Shaw, 14 for Eriksen, 12 for Fernandes, 11 for Rashford. For him, it was just losing games, silly games, and AFCON didn't help either of us. We both lost a lot of players to AFCON. He got pretty lucky in Onana didn't go to AFCON. And then finally, Aston Villa. How did Villa do? So Villa, most appearances, Watkins made 49 appearances, Martinez 48, Kamara 45, Torres 44, 42, 40 for Diaby. Goals, Watkins got 25 goals, currently being watched by Palace and West Ham. Diaby got 15. Jacob Ramsey got 11, which is fantastic. Like, it's a fantastic amount to have from someone like Jacob Ramsey. Assist-wise, Cash got 11. And then you're looking at 9 for Ramsey, 8 for Digne. I already know. So one of the things I do is I like to do scout reports for the other two. More Matt than Reece, and I look at players and I look at ways he can improve his team. And I can already tell you one of the big reasons why Matty Cash dropped off in assist is because he took him from being a wing back to get up and down and started playing him as an inverted wing back, and it bit him on the arse because he lost a big creative outlet in Matty Cash. If we go quickly through, all right, so Bayern ran away with the German league as you would expect. Barcelona won La Liga by 1 point. League One was, we all know it's going to be PSG. Yep, 14 points clear. It was it ever in doubt? Inter Milan won Serie A by 1 point. And then promotions, if we go Championship, Leicester, Cardiff and Leeds come up. Huddersfield, Coventry and Rotherham go down. League One sees Portsmouth, Wigan and Oxford come up. Carlisle, Cheltenham, Stevenage and Northampton go down. Wigan got promoted. Wigan finished second with an 8-point deduction. Reading came third with a 4-point deduction. Holy shit. League Two, we saw McDonald's, Sutton, Stockport and Gillingham who beat Wrexham in the final, and Doncaster and Crawley go down. The next one's really big for me. I'm really happy about this. We see in the Vanarama National League, Chesterfield and Dagenham and Redbridge getting promoted. They won the playoffs. They're up into the Football League again. And Oxford, Ebbsfleet, Southend and Kidderminster went down. Kidderminster, you should be appalled because Southend had a 10-point deduction. But I feel like that's a good place to end this. It's probably going to have been quite a long episode, and there's a lot. We're already kind of a couple of weeks away like into it. I think we're at the point of we're about to start pre-season, and there has already been some crazy money spent and some crazy players bought in by each club. All three of us have. I'm pretty sure a little teaser for it. I have 3 players on the ins. So Luka Voskovic, we don't get him until next summer. We have agreed to sign Maldini Kakuri from Arsenal's academy. His name is Maldini, like I want him. And we have agreed a 10 million fee for Rooney Bargy to come in and to rotate with Kulusevski. I might have some crazy ideas for... I should probably show you our tactic. Okay, I'm going to show you my tactic. I was going to take over as both of them and show you the tactics, but I feel like that is definitely something I need to kind of ask in advance for. So you may be getting that next season. I will speak to them and find out how they feel about it. But this is the kind of the style we went with. We started with this, but I felt like against big teams, it really isolated us. We ended up playing this. So, you know, we had Vicario. Porro, I was playing as the inverted wing back, and he kept whinging that he didn't like it, even though he was playing really well. So I made him a wing back, and it probably worked out, but in the kind of better for us. Romero and Van der Ven as centre backs, Adogi playing as an inverted wing back, Basuma as an anchor, Sarr as a box to box. We did change that to I felt like I was getting more out of him as an advanced playmaker and having him kind of drift into the spaces. Kulusevski as an inverted winger, Son as an inverted winger, and then whoever was up front playing out of defence. We were on short passing, but that was costing us a few times. We weren't getting kind of counter-attacking goals because we were trying to play it a bit too, kind of counter-pressing. It's your typical gegenpress. We went high towards the end. For a period, we went mid-block, and that was helping us because we were getting caught out against some of the poorer teams. I've got some crazy ideas for a couple of tactics for next season. I don't feel like I feel like this will be kept, but I feel like we're going to be transitioning to 2 other tactics that I'm looking at, and that will be saved for the next episode. So, if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure you smash that like button down below, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. We have a Sullymore more series going. We will update this whenever we get to the end of a season. Thank you for all your support. I have been Justin, and you have had Justin.